Hey guys, it is Monday morning again. And this morning I woke up and I'm kind of already worked into a funk. And it's a funk that's been building over the last couple of weeks. And I don't know exactly what set this ball rolling, but is it ever rolling? Anyways, much like last week, I got myself so worked into a funk that when I tried just freestyling, tried just getting my words out, they weren't coming out in any coherent manner. So I thought, you know what? Scripting things once in a while when I'm a little bit off the rails seems to be the only way forward. So I did that again today. And I don't think it's any less honest. It's just more organized. Maybe I'm undoing all of that organization by rambling in circles right up front, but here we are, a minute in, and maybe it's just time for me to get to what I wrote and quit rambling about the fact that I needed to write it. Anyways, political correctness. I've gone on record many, many times over the years about how I am not for it. But I don't know if I've done a really good job of explaining why I think it might actually be doing more harm than good. Political correctness has become such a dominating force in our culture that it feels like you can't go anywhere or say anything without stepping on eggshells. Now, I think it started out with good intentions, let's be respectful. Let's avoid harmful stereotypes. Let's be inclusive. But somewhere along the way, it turned into something oppressive and something that feels more like censorship than respect. As I said, I am openly opposed to political correctness, and I will tell you why. It doesn't just stifle conversation, it stifles growth. What pisses me off most about it is how it's conditioned us to avoid saying anything that might be perceived as wrong, even if that means avoiding the truth. The whole idea of political correctness seems to be more about appearances than actually creating meaningful change. Instead of fostering real understanding between people, it forces us to talk in a sanitized, superficial way. We hide behind the right words, and in doing so, we lose the freedom to have genuine conversation. Now, I've experienced this firsthand. I've been in situations where I didn't feel like I could say what I really thought because I knew it wasn't politically correct. I've watched people tiptoe around topics more concerned about how they might be perceived than about getting to the heart of the issue. And here's the thing. When you're afraid to speak honestly, you don't learn. You don't challenge ideas, and you don't grow. Political correctness, in my opinion, does more harm than good because it shuts down the very discussions that could lead to real change. One of the biggest issues I have with political correctness is how it turns people into targets. If you say something wrong, you're immediately labeled as ignorant, intolerant, or even bigoted. But is that even fair? How are people supposed to learn if they can't make mistakes? If every conversation is a potential minefield, how do we grow as individuals or as a society? By constantly policing language, we're not making people more inclusive, we're making them more afraid. And fear doesn't create understanding, it creates resentment. Here's the real kicker. Political correctness often ends up reinforcing the very stereotypes it claims to fight against. By trying to be hypersensitive to every group, we end up putting people into boxes. It becomes less about who you are as a person and more about what group you belong to. And that's the problem. When we focus on these labels, we forget about the individuals. We've created this environment where the right way to talk about people is more important than actually listening to them. And how does that help? Let me give you an example. I've seen people who are so scared of saying anything wrong that they won't even engage with people from other backgrounds. They don't ask questions. They don't try to understand. They just avoid the whole situation. So instead of creating a space for dialogue, political correctness has created a space for silence. And in that silence, the prejudices we're supposed to be fighting fester and grow. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be mindful of our words. Of course we should. Words do matter. But intent matters too. If we're so focused on saying the right thing that we forget about the intention behind the words, we're missing the fucking point. Are we promoting understanding, or are we just following a goddamn script? The truth is, we need to have more honest conversations, not more censored ones. We need to be able to talk about uncomfortable topics without the fear of being crucified for not getting everything perfectly right. We need to be able to challenge ideas, both our own and others, without being labeled as offensive or intolerant. Because here's the thing. Real change doesn't come from pretending that everything is fine. Real change comes from challenging assumptions, from asking tough questions, and yes, from sometimes getting it wrong and fucking learning from it. Political correctness, as I see it, does more to promote division than unity. It puts us in a position where we're constantly second-guessing ourselves and others, where we are afraid to speak out or engage. It promotes an us versus them mentality because it draws hard lines between what's acceptable and what isn't, without any room for nuance or understanding. So, what's the alternative? I believe it's about having real, open dialogue. It's about focusing on intent rather than perfection. It's about allowing space for mistakes and misunderstandings and being willing to engage with them rather than immediately shutting them down. If we want to create a truly inclusive society, we need to stop censoring ourselves and others in the name of fucking political correctness and start having the hard conversations that will actually lead to some understanding. In the end, I'm not here to tell anyone how to think, but I do believe it's time that we rethink political correctness. It's time we focus less on saying the right thing and more on saying the real thing, because only through honest, unfiltered dialogue can we make any real progress.